This week, we're going to be analysing in more depth how meaning is constructed through the representations provided by moving images such as films and TV series. Last week, we began to consider how moving images might communicate meaning through a consideration of the techniques that they share with still images. This week, we're going to build on this, exploring the use of techniques specific to moving images. In this first video, we'll look at the way in which camera movement, editing, and point of view can shape our understanding of the events and characters on screen. In the second video, we'll look in particular at how the use of the camera and aspects of performance may privilege a male gaze, and consider attempts to challenge this. In the third video, we're going to look at the way in which aspects of performance and the use of sound can be used to generate empathy for ethnic minority groups. In the fourth video, we'll consider how a range of techniques from last week and this week combine to construct our understanding of characters and social categories in a clip from The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1. So let's start by looking at camera movement. Filmmakers can move the camera in a number of ways. They can pan, moving the camera left to right on a fixed axis, tilt, moving up and down on a fixed axis, using a crane shot, in which the camera moves up and down and forwards or backwards on a crane, use a tracking or dolly shot, in which the camera moves along on a track or dolly cart, use a handheld camera, which is held in someone's hand, and it can follow someone where a track or dolly couldn't, like up or down stairs, but it's susceptible to jiggle. Or you could use a Steadicam, which is attached to a person and can follow someone anywhere, but uses weights to eliminate jiggle. Filmmakers also have a choice over the duration of the shot, in other words, how long a shot should last. And Steadicams are often used in conjunction with long takes so that we follow a character in real time across a space that unfolds continuously, thus more closely evoking our experience of reality. We can see evidence of this in a film like 1917, in which a series of long takes, filmed using Steadicams and more complex stabilised mobile cameras, are used to create the impression of travelling through the landscape of the First World War with the characters. This relationship between mobile cameras and realism is present even when there is editing as well. For example, the use of handheld cameras is associated with documentary and news reporting, as well as amateur footage shot on personal video cameras and now our phones. Thus, even in a rapidly edited clip such as this from The Hurt Locker, the jiggle of the handheld camera carries connotations of this greater realism associated with these other forms of filmmaking. This then raises the issue of whether the representation of particular events and social groups in such films carries greater weight given this illusion of veracity. Moving on to think about editing a bit more, editing is also crucial in order to get us to believe in the world that's being represented to us. While a film like 1917 is unusual in the degree to which it avoids and masks its editing, most mainstream films adopt what's called the continuity system of editing in order to make the editing as invisible as possible, persuading us that what we're seeing is unfolding continuously, even though the various shots are selected from numerous takes that may have been shot hours or days apart. Conventions of continuity editing include starting a scene with an establishing shot, clearly showing the characters' relationship to each other in space. An imaginary line is formed between the characters in the scene called the axis of action, and the camera always stays on one side of this line within a 180-degree arc. After the establishing shot, the scene is broken down through the shot-reverse shot pattern, cutting together shots from one end of the axis of action to the other, starting with medium close-ups and then moving to close-ups. Other traits of continuity editing include eyeline matches, in which we see a character looking at something and then see what they're looking at, joining the two elements together in space. A point of view shot is a particular kind of eyeline match, in which we see what a character is looking at from their optical point of view. Returning to the clip from The Hurt Locker, we see a point of view shot when we see the Iraqi butcher with the phone through the rifle sight of the US soldier. Something to consider this week is whether we share the optical perspective of certain characters and the social groups that they represent more than others, and whether certain characters and social groups are the object of such looks more than others. For example, due to films about the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, our view of Muslims and Arab ethnicities has often been through a rifle sight, as we share in the optical perspective of US soldiers. To continually view these groups as a target in this way is obviously problematic. In the next video, we're going to think more about other problematic ways of looking, specifically regarding gender.